Molnar as your host for the weather show, Weather Northeastern. Let's get right into the particulars. Special tropical weather bulletin here. Tropical storm Anna, first tropical system of the season. Look at this, showing very well defined system here. Subtropical system could potentially become a pretty much warm core system. We'll keep an eye on that here. But we have some cold core and warm core characteristics, hence the title of subtropical and then tropical in nature here. And most of the convection wrapping around the eastern and southern side of the system, looking a lot healthier than it did yesterday evening. The system is going to eventually continue to approach the Carolinas here. Now let's take a look at the particulars on Anna, continuing to move around the periphery of the subtropical high centered over Bermuda, and that will push the system towards the northwest, a little bit more towards the northwest than originally predicted, so potentially making landfall just west of the South Carolina-North Carolina border. Wind field pretty expansive with this thing, and the system, as I said, moving very slow. In fact, slower than originally thought by 24 hours. As you notice here, landfall not until 8 a.m., between 8 a.m. and noon on Sunday morning. So that is literally a day behind what we originally thought, as this system chugs very slowly to the northwest. Now, once it gets inland of North Carolina, or just east of Raleigh, it will start to accelerate as it gets caught in the westerlies, and there will be a system further to the north that pushes this system onto the northeast. So I'll have details on who potentially will see rainfall out of this, but this will be a wind, gusty winds on the excess of 45 to 50 miles per hour. The system could strengthen before it hits the coast. So we'll continue to watch for that, potentially up to 50 mile per hour winds, 55 mile per hour gusts. But the rainfall on the order of 8-inch plus potentially, especially from Wilmington on inland and northeast of Charleston, South Carolina. So watch for that. Most of the deaths that occur with tropical storms, especially as they chug very slowly inland here, will be with torrential rains and flooding. So heed those tropical storm warnings all along the North Carolina and South Carolina coasts. Let's take a look at rainfall amounts. Here across the Carolinas, look at this. You can see some of the darker reds, 3 to 5 inches further inland towards Raleigh, maybe as far north as Norfolk, Virginia. But you see that bluish areas, those darker blues, and the lighter blues getting upwards of 8 to locally as much as a foot of rain. And you notice another bullseye here across the central states, Dallas-Fort Worth up to Oklahoma City, and extending just eastward of that, mainly northwest of the Shreveport, Louisiana, and Linden, Texas area. We're seeing tremendous amounts of rain, and with that rainfall, we will see severe weather, tornadoes, damaging winds, hail. So we've got everything included here. Texas really under the gun for as much as 10 to potentially 15 inches of rain here. This is not good news for central northern Kansas, from central northern Kansas all the way down towards portions of north central Texas, central Oklahoma. That's where the central portion of the axis of heaviest rain sets up, with some of those damaging wind, large hail, frequent lightning, torrential downpours, tornadoes. And that will be slowly pushing to the east. You can see that ring of fire here around that subtropical high, pushing our tropical system to the north here. Take a look at the weather pattern shaping up across the country. As I showed you, here is that very bad digging trough here for portions of the central and southern plains, causing all that flooding and severe weather that will slowly push to the east after the weekend towards the beginning of the new week. We got some lighter rains out here out west with some ridging breaking down. And back east here, the ridge will slowly break down to the middle to latter portion of next week. But in the meantime, it will keep this blocking ridge and systems riding high over this ridge towards the Great Lakes and the Northeast. Speaking of the Great Lakes and Northeast, let me briefly recap what I showed you from the previous Weather Northeastern segment here for your Saturday. Look at this. We're looking at mostly chance of a shower or a thunderstorm across the north country here of New York into Canada, across the lower Great Lakes. Chances will be very small, 10 to 20%, but we'll get that chance for an afternoon shower or thunderstorm. But you notice most of the Northeast, from coastal sections to 200 to 300 miles inland, staying very sunny and very warm, except when you get within 10, 15 miles of the coast here, you get those sea breezes keeping it down into the lower to mid 70s. Further inland here, the Susquehanna River Valley, we're having another day of baking here into the mid to as high 80s here and into western portions of New England, all the way down through the Ohio Valley, stretching to your Sunday here. That system to the north starts to push a little bit south from Canada. You can see that boundary. We start to bring in showers and thunderstorm potential, increasing to a 40% chance, although a 60% chance across southern Canada, extending into north central New England here. And we'll continue to watch for that as we see some warmer temperatures here across New York, Pennsylvania, Susquehanna River Valley, extending westward towards the Allegheny Plateau and the Ohio River Valley. But one thing to note, coastal sections and then a little bit inland here still remaining abundant sunshine. So even those areas where we see a 20 to 40% chance in the lighter green colors here, we will still see plenty of sunshine to be had. Temperatures warm and toasty into the 80s. We get into Monday though, that boundary continues to sink to the south here. You can see where it starts to set up this baroclinic zone here to the north. Temperatures being held down into the upper 50s and low 60s, places like Caribou, over towards Quebec City, and just stretching into southern Ontario here. But you can see south of that, we remain toasty into the 80s from the Pennsylvania Turnpike on southward here. And of course, we get increasing chances of showers and thunderstorms, and some of these in southern Ontario, just around the London area on southward towards just north of Cleveland over Lake Ontario and over towards Michigan, could be on the strong side. So we head on into Tuesday, that sharp cold front heading in from the west here, pushing into some very moisture laden air. One thing to note, however, is the remnants from what would be Tropical Storm Anna will probably at this point be too far east to produce and entrain any of its moisture into the lower Susquehanna River Valley of Pennsylvania and New York and New Jersey. So we will have to rely on this front here pushing to the east on Tuesday with a potential severe weather outbreak for portions like Erie, Pittsburgh early in the day, Bradford State College, Scranton later in the day, potentially as far north as the New York-Pennsylvania border on southward, just northwest of Harrisburg here. So we'll continue to watch for that here at MeteoMark's Weather Northeastern. I will have a 5-day outlook for my hometown viewers from Binghamton to Scranton and Elmira's upper Susquehanna region of upstate New York and northeast Pennsylvania. Don't forget to like me on Facebook at MeteoMark, subscribe to me on YouTube at MeteoMark.com, it's Twitter at WX Northeastern, and Google Plus at MeteoMark. Here is your 5-day. Extending from Saturday to the midpoint of the middle of next week, look at these temperatures. We're moving up towards the mid to high 80s both Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, your nicest day. Mother's Day here, not too bad. Chance of an afternoon shower or thunderstorm if you want some outdoor plans. Saturday is more promising, but don't hold off Sunday either, because we're only looking at about a 30 to 40% chance of a shower or a thunderstorm. Overnight lows looking muggy into the lower to mid 60s, and humidity will be increasing over the weekend. Heading on into Monday, look at this. Showers and thunderstorms likely later in the day, especially after 4 p.m. Heed those severe weather watches or warnings or anything that's issued, because Tuesday, look at that, we head into the potential for strong storms. Small hail, damaging wind, and any of the severe weather is quite possible, especially south of the New York-Pennsylvania border. So we'll watch for that. Temperatures stepping down into the mid to upper 70s by then. And then for Wednesday, cooler and drier and windier, lower humidity, but look at that. Temperatures only making it up around 60 degrees. That's going to do it for this edition of Weather Northeastern.